Hello everyone, my name is Seth, and today I'm going to give you my review of Nosferatu. I was really excited for Nosferatu. I loved the trailers. Robert Eggers is a really good director. I actually really like the 1922 original Nosferatu film. I think it's just a great piece of film history. And so this was one of my most anticipated films from last year. I finally got around to watching it, and honestly, I was really disappointed by it. But before we go any farther, go ahead and like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. We're getting closer and closer to 300 subscribers, so if you're new here, please consider subscribing, and if you're not new here, please share this video around with any friends or family. It could really help the channel grow, and it would absolutely make my day. So if you don't know, Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers, is an adaptation of the oldest vampire movie we have. It was almost lost to time. It came out in 1922 by the same name. And if you're interested in film history at all, I definitely recommend going and trying to find a copy of this somewhere online. I think there's probably a streaming service here or there that would have it. If you're definitely a film fan and you're interested in the history of film, I think this is kind of a must watch. And so I was super excited for this remake. And I think it had a ton of potential. It has a really good director. There's a lot of talented actors in this. But for me, this film just didn't really work. And that's incredibly disappointing. There's definitely some really good things in this, like it's beautifully shot, but as a whole, for a film, it just didn't really ever come together for me. And honestly, I was expecting to love this film. I really like The Witch. I really like The Lighthouse. So it's not that I don't like Robert Eggers' style. I do. I mean, I think the film started really well. I really liked the first chunk of the film. The first bit really is like a modern remake of the 1922 original, and it's a pretty faithful remake, honestly. But as the film goes on, I don't think it can keep up that momentum. I think a lot of the horror aspect of this film does work. It's definitely more of just kind of an atmospheric horror film. There are a few jump scares here and there throughout this film, but I think that they're actually used very well. I know some people really hate jump scares, and I don't hate jump scares. I hate it when horror films rely on jump scares. I hate when horror films throw in a whole bunch of false jump scares. When there's a jump scare, I want it to be real. I want it to be a meaningful jump scare. And they do that here. Jump scares are not just cheap tricks in this film. Anytime they use it, there's a real reason for it, and I love that. But as a whole, they do such a good job all throughout this film, building tension and just building the atmosphere, and it really gives this whole film an unsettling vibe. But to follow that up, I will say it kind of gets tiring after a while. And I think part of that could potentially be the pacing. I feel like the story for a large portion of this film just moves way, way too slow. I feel like I'm just sitting back and just waiting and waiting and waiting for the characters to actually do something to make the story move forward. I'm just waiting for the story to continue. This film is over 2 hours long, and based on what I just watched, I don't think there's any reason for it to be anywhere near this long. I'm thinking, honestly, maybe an hour and a half. That would even help. There's just too much meandering all throughout this film. I think if the film was cut down a little bit shorter, a little bit better pacing, not as much just kind of wandering around the story, I feel like the whole atmosphere just wouldn't be as tiring. But like I said, at some point in the film, the atmosphere just loses its creep factor. It's not as scary. It's just kind of tiring. That's the best word I can find for it. I think it definitely overstayed its welcome, and that's not what you want at all. You want it to stay exciting and creepy through the whole film. You want to be on the edge of your seat, and I was for a big chunk of it. But I just think probably about a little bit after an hour mark is when the film just kind of started to turn for me. I can recognize that some of the things toward the end of the film were creepy, but I guess I just was tired of it. I just kind of got desensitized to it, but really it just didn't affect me. The actual horror and the actual creepiness of this and the whole situation and the visuals, it just kind of ran out. I think the film in that department is much more effective in the first hour 15. I will say though that the filmmaking here, just as a whole, the actual technical filmmaking side of it is incredible. I absolutely love the sets and the costumes. This film was actually nominated for 4 Academy Awards, and I completely agree with those nominations. It was nominated for makeup and hairstyling, cinematography, production design, and costume design, and I completely agree with all of those nominations. All of that stuff was top notch. Like the cinematography and the lighting in this is so good. They really do some awesome work with the camera here. The way they use the pans and the tilts to really make you feel uneasy. And they do some really cool things with the camera that just kind of makes you feel disoriented like the characters do. And the lighting was absolutely on point. I was a little bit nervous going into it that this film would just be visually too dark. Like I couldn't see what was going on, but that absolutely was not the case. They also were able to effectively use the lighting to help communicate the feelings that they wanted the audience to feel. And the lighting is also one thing that definitely added to this horror atmosphere they had going on. One, I guess, kind of bigger issue for me is that I'd say a lot of the performances in this film just really didn't connect with me at all. I think most of the performances just didn't seem natural. I feel like through a lot of this film, it just seemed like I was watching actors act and not necessarily watching real people having real reactions, if that makes sense. And that's not just the way of speaking. They use a very 1800s way of speaking in this. So it's not just that, because I think basically all of Willem Dafoe's performance seems natural to me. But I can tell, it's like technically they're doing a good job with the lines that they are given. I just think a lot of the times it's the way that the actors are directed that just doesn't connect with me. And it's really, really hard to care about the characters, to really be invested in these characters when I don't feel like I can connect with them at any level. This is honestly kind of a weird feeling to have. It's been a while since I've had a film like this where, like, yeah, technically looking at it, I can tell, it's like, yeah, you're doing a good job acting, but it definitely seems like you're just acting. Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emma Corrin, like, they all did technically a good job. I just could not connect. Most of the film, it just felt like these were actors performing. There's just something there with the performances where I can't connect with any of these characters. Except maybe Willem Dafoe's character and Ralph Ineson's characters. I think those two were probably more of the standout characters to me. And at this point, we know you put Bill Skarsgård in a bunch of creepy makeup, and he can be a creepy villain. So he did a good job there. Honestly, as a whole, I think this film was incredibly disappointing. I actually almost didn't even write my notes and film a review for this just because of how disappointed I was. There's some good things here, don't get me wrong. I think the actual technical filmmaking aspects of this was really well done. The areas that it got nominated for an Oscar for, completely deserved. So the actual technical filmmaking here is incredible. And when the horror works, when the horror is effective, when it's creepy, it really, really works and it hits hard. But maybe it's the pacing, maybe it's the length of the film, whatever it is, at some point, it just kind of turns and it's not effective for me anymore. It gets oppressive and just the creep factor just kind of goes away. It wears off by the end of the film. Like I just mentioned, I think technically the performances are good, but they just feel like a performance. I can't connect with these characters. I just felt like I was watching a bunch of actors instead of real people reacting to situations. This is definitely a film where I can say that if you're not a fan of Robert Eggers, this will not change your mind. If you don't like his style, this definitely will not convince you. Unfortunately, I don't think I can give this any more than a 2.5 out of 5. But that's it. That's my review of Nosferatu. Have you seen this film? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to have a conversation with you about it. Did you like it a lot more than I did? Are you kind of in the same boat as I am where you were disappointed by it? I'd love to know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. You can follow me on social media pretty much anywhere at CinemaSeth, and I'll see you next time.